Why did Apple struggle following its initial success? By Stephen Briggs. Two high school friends, Stephen Wozniak and Steve Jobs, have become household names and their success has become that of legends. It's hard to imagine Apple being anything but brilliant. However, their road to success has not always been smooth. Before I discuss the roller coaster ride that seems to accurately describe the life of the Apple industry, I'll give you a background of its origins. Both Wozniak and Jobs worked for other companies after high school, Wozniak for Hewlett-Packard and Jobs for Atari. Wozniak came up with the initial idea at the Homebrew Club. The Homebrew Club was basically a club that started in the Silicon Valley in 1975 for computer hackers. The Homebrew Club was where Wozniak tinkered with his first design of the Apple computer, the design that became Apple I. Both Jobs and Wozniak were responsible for promoting. And here is a picture of Apple I. The initial cost was $666.66. It was not really a success and it gained little attention. However, the groundwork was laid for better things to come. It was not until the introduction of the Apple II in 1977 that Apple had its first taste of success. It had a plastic case, included color graphics, and was inexpensive. Johnny Ryan states in his History of the Internet that PCs had previously been sold in parts for enthusiasts to assemble. However, the new Apple II could be bought as a ready-made unit, as you see here. Also, the Apple II was convenient for business, as it was easy to develop applications for the Apple II, such as the VisiCalc. This became their entry into the PC market. Here's an image of the Apple II. Johnny Ryan's account of History of the Internet states the Apple I and II were designed strictly on a hobby-for-fun basis. By 1980, the Apple III, here's an image of the Apple III, was introduced, and Apple was now getting a taste of the international market with a sizable company of several thousand employees. At this point, the design strictly for fun basis was changing into a serious business. It was Steve Jobs' vision to hire mid-level managers, new investors, and older, more conservative men, much to the dismay of many of its original employees. However, by 1981, the market became saturated with competitors in the computing market. Fortunately, Apple did not suffer the same fate as IBM, signing a deal with Microsoft and allowing outside companies to clone many of the revolutionary ideas that IBM had pioneered. As Ryan argues in the History of the Internet, the secrets of Apple's hardware were jealously protected. Because Apple was so well protected, it is part of the reason that they fell into the slump later on, making themselves isolated from the market, lacking compatibility with other programs. In 1979, Jobs also started a project called the Lisa. However, Jobs was taken off the project by then President Apple Mike Markkula. It's hard to imagine Steve Jobs as being incompetent. However, it didn't last long, and Jobs went to work on the highly successful Macintosh computer. And by 1984, the introduction of the Macintosh computer became very popular. However, it was expensive. And here's an image of the famous Macintosh computer in 1984. The debut of the Macintosh computer even had a 60-second advertisement in the third quarter of the Super Bowl. Look at the pop culture there. However, it's not compatible with previous Apple computers. That was one of the drawbacks, including the Lisa, but it had twice the memory of the popular Commodore 64, put 2.5 times as much data on a floppy disk as the IBM PC's single-sided 5.25-inch disk, included two serial ports, one which could be used for networking at the then incredible speed of 230.4 kilobytes per second, and a total graphical operating system, all packed into the cutest, friendliest package the computer industry had yet seen. And that year, Apple sold 70,000 units during its first 100 days on the market. Because of the restrictions that Apple placed on its products was tight, it helped deter them from copycats and other companies from cloning their ideas. However, their airtight restrictions, as I mentioned earlier, became their downfall in the late 1980s to mid-90s. A major factor for their slump was also the introduction of Windows. By the late 80s, Apple was able to maintain their presence in the computer industry, introducing in 1987 the Mac II. This is what the Macintosh 2 looked like in this picture right here. Built with expandability in mind, the Mac II made the Macintosh line a viable, powerful family of computers. Apple was, quote Rolling Stone magazine, a Wall Street dollar, shipping 50,000 Macs a month. It seemed in 1999 that the Windows would be a flop and the Mac would be riding high for the next decade, but it didn't. By 1990, the market became saturated with PC clones of every conceivable configuration, and Apple was the only company selling Macs. In late May, Microsoft rolled out Windows 3.0, which could run on virtually all the PC clones in the world. This left Apple in trouble. Apple's worst problem was not selling computers, it was building them. By June 1995, Apple had $1 billion in back orders and didn't have the parts to build them. But Apple's problems were added to the late summer with the release of Bill Gates' Windows 95. By 1997, Apple was able to pull itself out of its worst slump in Apple's history, and with Steve Jobs back on board and the interim CEO, eventually becoming the permanent CEO, the situation was getting back to normal. Jobs announced an alliance with Microsoft in exchange for $150 million in Apple stock. This deal also allowed Apple to be compatible with Windows 98, and that was being released towards the end of the year. The iMac became the best-selling computer in the nation that year, and sales continued to climb with the release of the PowerMac G3, which I have up here, iBook over to the left-hand corner, the PowerMac G4, and these are basically images of what Apple was introducing at the turn of the new century. Though there was a slight gamble with Jobs' introduction of the PowerMac G4 Cube in 2000, the image is over here to the left, which turned out to be a failure, the story of Apple has not slowed down to this day and continues to grow with its innovative creations. The introduction of the iStore in the iPod and the iPod Mini has been a huge success. In addition, the easy-to-use and compatible with loads of apps introduction of the iPhone in 2007 and the 2010 introduction of the iPad will keep Apple products on top of their game for years to come.